So good morning, everyone. My name is Amy Wolf. I'm the programming coordinator here at the Osterville Village Library. Thank you so much for joining us today, and to our friends joining us on Zoom, thank you for being here as well. Today, we have the honor of hosting local historian and author Paul Chesbro as he takes us on a walk down memory lane talking about Osterville in days of old. Today's stop on memory lane's path has us looking at a history of the Crosby Boat Yard. Some of you may see Paul in our lobby downstairs. He's always available to talk or chat about Osterville from days gone by. He is a wealth of knowledge, and what a generous friend to the library to give his time. And as I mentioned before, these are being recorded and uploaded to our YouTube channel. So for those of you joining on Zoom, you will be able to see this recording in about a week or so. And if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you'll get it first dibs. So without further ado, here's Paul Chesbro.
Thank you. I can't get around like I used to. It's nice this morning. We've even got some people here from Missouri who've come here to hear me. I hope it's worth the flight to hear me. Well, okay, once again, can you hear me? Okay, once again, it's a pleasure to speak and to have recorded some of the history of the village of Old Osterville. This research started back in 1959 while I was visiting a great aunt in Phoenix, Arizona. Even though I thought I had reached a limit in my research several years ago, bits of Old Osterville history surfaces up at times. However, the main subject today will be the legacy and reputation the Crosby family has brought to this village and to those anywhere interested in sailing. Just when and who are the ones behind this accomplishment, and to have a small village such as Osterville to be known for its boat building, not ocean liners or large sailing vessels, but just ordinary sailing vessels that people can enjoy as they sail in Nantucket Sound. Old Jesse Crosby Sr. and his wife Ruth and 10 children settled in Centerville, perhaps along the Centerville River back in the 1700s. There you go. They are both buried in the ancient cemetery in Centerville. Jesse Crosby Sr. also served in the Revolutionary War. Of his 7 sons, at least 2 were involved in boat building in this area. They were Daniel and Jesse Jr. So you look up there at the chart, you see an asterisk beside Daniel. And don't get that confused, Gail, with your Daniel. This is a long time before him. And Jesse Jr. To what extent Daniel and Jesse Jr. were in boat building and in Osterville, there are no records available. What records we have state that another boat builder by the name of Oliver Hinckley learned the boat building trade from Jesse Crosby Jr. in the early 1800s, and that Daniel Crosby, those 2 names with the asterisk, was a shipwright in Austell, and that he died on Oyster Island or Oyster Harbors in 1828 at the age of 63. That's all the information we have on these two who followed in the line of building boats. However, before we get into the heirs of the shipwright, Daniel Crosby, because that's the one we're going to follow, and the reputation they have in building the now famous Crosby catboat, I'm going to diverse for a few minutes because there were other boat builders here in Austerville. Records that we have state that Oliver Hinckley began building schooners at the foot of Bay Street, down there by the flagpole, in 1817 through 1845. The records we have state that Oliver Hinckley learned the boat building trade from Jesse Crosby Jr., already mentioned, at the foot of Bay Street in the early 1800s. The records of Oliver Hinckley's accomplishment are recorded in volume 1. It's the center book there. Shown here is a schooner Page, built in Austerville in 1831. I found this at the owner at that time was Mr. Chester Burris. He's long gone. I wonder where this painting is nowadays. I have no idea. I would presume it'd be worth quite a lot as far as finances are concerned. The records of Oliver Hinckley's accomplishment are recorded in volume 1. Shown here, it's a repeat, of the schooner Page, built in Austell in 1831 for Zenas Bassett. I have no idea who he was. He's not from Austerville. I presume he was a ship captain on in the Cape area. It is believed that Jesse Crosby Jr. lived at the foot of Bay Street and that the home of Oliver Hinckley, well, this is the stuff about Jesse. Let's see if I can find his home. There's his home. That the home of Oliver Hinckley was built over the foundation of Jesse Crosby Jr.'s old home, and for many years later was owned by the Daniel family. For whatever reason, Jesse Crosby Jr., this is him, removes himself from Austerville to Nantucket Island, perhaps due to the whaling industry. We find recorded that several of his children, you can look there, died on the island of Nantucket. One back in 1822. I don't know where the other ones, and this last name, Folger, is an old Nantucket name. We find recorded that several of his children were very young or young of age, died on the island of Nantucket. We will now pick up the heirs of Daniel Crosby, as already mentioned. A shipwreck, right, shipwreck. I'll be a shipwreck. A shipwright who died on Oyster Harbors in 1828. That's all we know pertaining to him. Now, let me get this thing here. Okay. This is the Daniel Crosby that we're going to follow. However, the son of Daniel Crosby, who lived only to be 45, the son of Andrew Crosby. I'm taking cancer pills, so my head gets all mixed up. So excuse all of this. However, the son of Daniel Crosby was Andrew Crosby, who lived only to be 45 years of age. So this is Daniel Crosby up top there. He's the one that died on Oyster Island. That's all we know about him. And we're going to follow now his son, Andrew Crosby. He lived to be 45 years of age, was engaged in boat building here at West Bay. In 1818, Andrew Crosby, the third one with the asterisk there, married Tirzah Lovell. How do you like that for a first name? Tirzah Lovell. Their old home was situated, well, wait a minute. There it is. Their old home was situated on Manor Way. So you go down West Bay Road, just before you go into Crosby Yacht on the right is Manor Way. And over the years, it was added on to, this is originally an old home, Cape Cod home, to take in boarders. And during my lifetime, it was torn down. Let's back up here for a few minutes. Okay. I'm okay, Amy. Just be patient. Okay, Andrew and Tirzah had two sons and twin daughters. Okay. One of their sons was Horace Stoughton Crosby, and that's him right there. Their other son was Worthington, Cornelius Worthington Crosby. That's him there with the pair of boots on, pictured with his son, another Daniel Crosby. And we're privileged here today to have this Daniel Crosby's great-granddaughter here. So I hope, Gail, I'm getting this right. Now, this is Mrs. Rich. If you have my books on Osterville, I feature what's known as the Rich Letter of 1877. Mrs. Rich went around the village of Osterville because her sister, who lived in Middleborough, wanted to hear something about the village. So Mrs. Rich here wrote a letter about all the homes and families. She went house to house in 1877. And the Rich Letter would be in these three books. It'd be in this one closest to me. In 1877, when Augusta Lovell Rich wrote her letter about the village, Tirzah Crosby was deceased. And she states, Horace, we could pick up the fella here, Horace has thrice, I presume that means many times, built onto the old homestead. Whoop, I passed the old homestead. Go the other way, Paul. Okay, that's Horace. And this is Worthington. It built onto the old homestead. Their two sons, Cornelius Worthington and Horace Stoughton, were just teenagers when their father died. Cornelius was 16, Cornelius Worthington, and Horace was 13. At their early age, I don't know how much they were involved in boat building. However, their mother, Teresa, was involved in spiritualism. Now, I have to be careful when I talk about spiritual stuff because people might jump all over me. But read the records. That's Mrs. Rich said she thought her belief in spiritualism was foolish. That's what Mrs. Rich said. I agree with her. A belief that spirits of the dead can communicate with the living through a medium. Teresa believed she could communicate with her deceased husband. Let's advance. That's Mrs. Rich. That's the house. Now that's the old house. This is it when I knew it. And I remember when it was torn down. Okay. Teresa believed she could communicate with her deceased husband. How advanced the boat building her two sons were remains just speculation at this time. As they matured into their late teens and early 20s, their mother, so she claimed, was able to communicate with her deceased husband by rapping the table. And if the table come up 2 inches, that means make the boat 2 inches longer, something like that. And was able to get many of the measurements to build what has become now known the famous Crosby catboat. I believe sometime between 1845 and 1850, the building of the now famous Crosby catboat was well underway. Today, catboats and other sailing vessels are still being built here. The Crosby family ownership is no longer, except for Chester Crosby's grandson, Ned. I don't know exactly where his headquarters are. The Crosby family ownership is no longer, and of the two boatyards, only one remains known as Crosby Yacht, and only one, Malcolm Crosby, still remain on the job at Crosby Yacht, a business that was established about 175 years ago. Now, let's get in. Here's some of the characters that built some of the boats. This was at a cookout about 1880. The man on the left would have been one of the Crosbys. If you have my books, I got all the names of who these characters are. This is the earliest known picture of the Crosby boatyard. So if you go over the bridge to Oyster Harbors, you can't jump off the bridge anymore because you might lose your life. Several people have. And if you look towards the Riano Golf Course, that's the earliest known picture taken in the 1880s of the Crosby boatyard. This is old Worthington Crosby. He was a son of Andrew and Teresa, and his great-great-granddaughter is present with us today. And that's Worthington in front of his shop, the fellow with the beard, with some of his, again, if you have my books, all these people are names. I knew the man here on the right. Name was Charlie Hall. I remember him. He was almost 100 when he passed away. And right in the center, the man with the little girl, that's Horace Manley Crosby. And Gail, maybe your great-grandfather is here, but I can't tell you all the names. Here's Worthington Crosby again in his boat shop, making a sale, 1880s. Tragically, this fella, Worthington, his wife was getting ready to heat up the stove in the morning, and back in those days, they wore petticoats after petticoats, and the petticoat caught on fire, and that's how she ended her life, tragically. She was burnt to death, this man's wife. This is Worthington in front of his, in his shop down at Crosby Boat Yard. Now, this picture here would deal more with Gail's family, Daniel Crosby. But these are some of the Daniel Crosby boat building fellows. This is Wilton Crosby at the side, and I think Ralph Crosby, and this is Charlie Crosby. But again, they're all mentioned in my book, and they're just names to you people sitting here, but it looks like they're going over a set of plans and how to construct a boat. Okay, this is Daniel Crosby. His great-granddaughter is here today. He was a very prominent boat builder here in Austral, and I think his boat works were on the other side of the bridge. In other words, if you went over the bridge to Little Island, where the Quonset huts used to be, I think his operations used to be over there. This is Daniel Crosby. As far as I know, no longer anybody in this family, this descendant, builds boats that I know of. This is his son. His granddaughter is here, as I mentioned. Ralph Crosby. I knew this man's wife. I never knew this man. And this man was a naval architect. I don't know how much boat building he did, but he was a naval architect. And he was the proud father of twins. Someday, Gail, I want you to look at this, see which one is which. One is Emily and one is Josephine. You knew them better than I did. But those Daniel Crosby's granddaughters. That's Gail's grandmother. No, I knew this lady, but she was quite a bit older when I knew her. Now, Daniel Crosby's brother, Charlie Crosby, also built boats. But there is no heirs today in Osterville of him. In fact, he lived right over here on Sunset Lane, Charlie Crosby. I knew his wife, but I didn't know him. Well, that's Horace. We got a little confused here, Amy. Okay, well, no, I'm wrong. This is Horace. We're going from Worthington to Horace. Now, Horace had 4 boys. Herbert, he was a boat builder here in Austral. Wilton Crosby, he was also a boat builder. Joseph Crosby. If you knew Chester Crosby Sr., this would be his father. I think after the boat building he did at the beginning, he went into the oyster business. But as a young person, he was also a boat builder. Now, this one is the most popular one nowadays known here. I remember him. I was 20-something years old when he passed away. Horace Manley Crosby. He was the youngest of the 4 boys of Horace Sr. And he was the one who was very popular down here at what's known as Crosby Yacht. Now, a grandson of old Horace Crosby, another one was Herbert. He also built boats here in Austell. If you have volume 2, the book closest to me here explains who all these people are. But he was another boat builder here in the village. This here is Chester Crosby. Some of you remember him and his 2 sons. They built boats. Here, in fact, I worked for Chester painting boats for 3 years. He was a boat builder, but the family does not own that business anymore. Now this is Crosby Boat Yard, probably about early 1900s. So this picture would have been taken. You'd have to go over the bridge and then look back to the boat yards. That's what West Bay. And then if you wanted to go out to the cut, you had to go that way. And I think this is some of the boat shops, perhaps, of Daniel Crosby. You go over the bridge where the Quonset huts used to be. These were some of the shops of Daniel Crosby, Gail's great-grandfather. Here's another picture of the boat yard as it has grown and it's expanded. That old square building there, getting old, Amy. Cane comes in handy once in a while. That building's still there. It looks like it could fall apart, but it's still there. There's some more pictures. This is the old Worthington Crosby boat shop, right at the end of the dock on the right. That's old Worthington's boat shop. Here's some more pictures of the Crosby boat yard taken years ago. And as I said, that big square building, that's still there. And to the right was Worthington. That was his boat shop. Now, if you go over, this is the bridge. This is the bridge. It was a wooden bridge. Now, I don't remember that, but there's the wooden bridge right there. And those 2 houses are still there. And that's boatyard over there. And some more pictures of the boat shops in Austell. This is probably 1910, right in that time frame. That's the launching of a boat. Okay, I mentioned Herbert. There was a picture that came up of him on the screen. That was his boat shop. And I think that was situated on this side of the bridge. There's some of the boatyard. The golf course would be way over in the background. This is a nice picture. Again, those 2 houses way over there, they're still there. And there's the old wooden bridge. Now, what I want you to notice, because we're going to come up to another picture soon. What I want you to notice, look at all the trees. Well, pretty soon you're going to see a picture. After the 44 hurricane, the trees are gone. Here's an aerial view of the what's known today as Crosby Yacht. I have no idea what year this was taken, probably 1930s, 1940s. That this is all Crosby Yacht. Those are the Quonset huts. They're not there anymore. That Chester Crosby had. I used to paint boats in those and work there in the winter. It was cold, no heat. No wonder my knees are shot. There's another picture of the Crosby Boatyard. This would be at the end of, if you know where the flagpole is, and you come down Bay Street in Osterville, it would be over there. I presume most of you know where Bay Street is. There's another aerial view of the, I gotta make mention here. That's where they did Crosby's house. But it was added on to like a lot of the old Cape houses, so it's hard to, and it's still there. It's hard to see the old outlines, but that's where they did Crosby's house. Another picture. Now, when I showed you the picture of the old Crosby house that was added on to, that's it. It became a lodging place. When my mother was a young girl, she used to wait on table there, a waitress. And she met Chester Crosby's wife there. Her name was Ida. That was known as the Crosby House. Here's some more pictures of the Crosby Yacht. Don't ask me who owns these boats. I don't know. Okay, this is the picture I wanted to show you. If you were paying attention to what I said, all those trees, they're all gone. This picture had to be taken 1944, 45, or 6. It was after the 44 hurricane. I was in grade school over here, and we had 2.5 weeks off from school. That was good. But all the trees were gone. That's the reason I wanted you to see this photograph. It devastated. That was the worst hurricane this area has had. Now, the 1938 hurricane was more Buzzards Bay and west up through Narragansett. And then we had a Hurricane Bob. Isn't that right, Judy? In 1991. That was the next bad one. But that just shows you what hurricane knocked down all the trees. There's a picture of some of the fellow with the red shirt is Malcolm. He's still alive. It's too bad he's not, well, he had to work. He's still working. He's 80-something years old. He's younger than I am, but he's still working.
83 today.
What?
Turned 83 today.
He's 83. Yeah, he's still, good for him. He's still working. No harm in that. Here's a launching of a boat at Crosby Yacht. That's I got a lot of these pictures from Britain. Crosby, I don't know if some of you know who he is. He lives right around the corner here on Sunset Lane. His father had these. There's a boat being built at Crosby Yacht. I wish I had the dates and all of this, but Britain, he didn't have them either. There's a Crosby Yacht. I think this is in the area where the bad fire was a number of years ago that burnt up a lot of the boats. I think it was either this building or behind this area. Another launching of a boat. Now this is Horace Manley Crosby. I remember him when I was a youngster. I was 20-something years old. His heirs still live here. Malcolm would be a grandson, the youngest one. And he was a very prominent, I don't think this man ever went to boat building school, but I don't know for sure. But he was a very wise designer of boats. Horace Manley Crosby. In fact, he was also the director of the old Osterville Silver Band. He could play a musical instrument. And this is him and his wife, Horace with his wife, and their oldest son, Max, Malcolm. I used to call on him quite a lot. He lived right over here where the bank is. What's it, Rockland? No, Citizens Bank. The house was moved over onto Lovell Road. And Maxie here was an old frontline veteran and in the Yankee division in World War I. He said the Germans tried to get him, but they couldn't. Very interesting guy to talk to. There's some more. This is Maxie, they called him. H. Manley. And he had these 3 sons. That's Carol Crosby on the left, another Wilton, H. Manley Jr., Manley Sr. I knew most of them, but I knew this fellow the best. There they are, I think, at their 60th wedding anniversary. This is this is H. Manley Crosby with Malcolm, Max, Carol, the other sister, I didn't know her, Wilton and H. Manley Jr. I just found this picture recently. This is, I think, their 60th wedding anniversary. Now, the only one in this picture that still lives, that's of the grandchildren, is Malcolm. The fellow that, what'd you say, turned 80? 83. He's still alive, still working. And these are great-grandchildren. I don't know them, but I think Malcolm said that they're still alive. Here's some more pictures, more beautiful pictures of the boatyard. Amy, I accidentally touched that thing. Well, I'm not used to all this technology.
You're fine.
That's it. Sorry. We're almost done. Another modern day picture of the boatyard with the golf course. This is the boatyard again. I got these pictures from Britain, but he didn't have any idea what year these pictures, because they had no year marked on them. These are just some modern day 1950s, 60s, 70s, 80s of the boatyard. All right. I'm all out of breath. That's the best I can do for the history of the Crosby boatyard and catboats. And if there's any Crosbys here, I think I've made some mistakes. Don't be afraid to come forward and say so. All right, thank you for coming. That's it.